By the time I learned why my husband needed my credit, $70,000 had already been wired toward a house in Florida. The house had 4 bedrooms, a swimming pool, and a fenced backyard. I had never seen it. My name was not on the deed. Another woman had already chosen the furniture, and her young son called my husband Dad. Every dollar began with a loan carrying my signature. Hello, my name is Lauren Mitchell. I was 38 when one financial decision nearly destroyed my home, my marriage, and the future I had built for my daughter. Until then, I believed I was careful with money. I worked as an office manager at a dental clinic near Columbus, Ohio. My bills were always paid early, my credit cards stayed nearly empty, and I kept enough savings to survive several months without income. Security mattered because I had grown up without it. My mother raised me alone and treated every unexpected expense like a crisis. After she died, I used most of her inheritance as the down payment on our house. That house was the first place that had ever felt permanent. My husband, Eric, knew how much it meant to me. He also knew my credit score was far better than his. Eric worked in commercial renovation and had dreamed for years about starting his own company. He often complained that other people were becoming wealthy from projects he helped complete. One November evening, he came home carrying a professional-looking business proposal. The folder contained revenue projections, equipment estimates, warehouse photographs, and a list of potential clients. A retiring contractor was supposedly selling everything below market value, but the offer would disappear within days. Eric needed $120,000. His damaged credit made approval impossible. The loan had to be mine. The monthly payment would exceed $3,000, and the number frightened me immediately. Eric answered every concern with another confident projection. Several contracts were supposedly ready to begin. The company would be profitable within months. Most of the debt could be repaid during the first year. I wanted an accountant to review the plan, but the deadline was suddenly too urgent. Contacting the warehouse owner was impossible because the negotiations were allegedly confidential. Every sensible precaution became a threat to the opportunity. Eric knew exactly how to pressure me. He made caution sound like disloyalty. I feared becoming the wife who destroyed her husband's dream because she was too afraid to believe in him. That fear overpowered my judgment. I signed the loan. 4 days later, the money entered a business account controlled entirely by Eric. During the first few weeks, everything looked legitimate. New tools appeared in our garage. Boxes of gloves, goggles, and electrical equipment filled one corner. Eric left early, returned late, and constantly mentioned suppliers, contractors, and delayed permits. Then the first payment came due. Our shared account was short by more than $3,000. A client had supposedly delayed an invoice, so Eric asked me to cover the payment from our savings. The same thing happened the following month. By the third payment, nearly $10,000 had disappeared. I requested access to the business account. Instead of showing me the statements, Eric became tense and focused on how difficult starting a company could be. My questions were treated like another burden he had to carry. His disappointment made me feel guilty. That guilt bought him more time. The first real crack appeared in our mailbox. A financing company had sent Eric a late notice for a black Cadillac Escalade with a monthly payment above $1,000. We did not own a Cadillac. The letter listed an address across town. I searched it online and found a luxury apartment complex with private garages, a swimming pool, and rent higher than our mortgage. Nothing about it looked connected to construction. Eric claimed the vehicle helped him impress clients and the address belonged to a business contact. His explanation came quickly, but his eyes moved toward the letter on the counter. That reaction stayed with me. The following morning, I checked my credit report. A new card appeared under my name with a balance above $22,000. I had never opened it. The account showed charges for hotels, restaurants, airline tickets, furniture, and jewelry. One purchase reached almost $7,000. It was a diamond bracelet. The credit card company confirmed that the application used my social security number, date of birth, home address, and an email account controlled by Eric. This was not a banking error. Someone had deliberately pretended to be me. That evening, I searched Eric's home office. Inside the pocket of a winter coat, I found the jewelry receipt. The bracelet had been purchased during the same month as our anniversary. Eric had given me perfume. I drove to the apartment complex and parked where I could see the entrance. The black Cadillac arrived shortly before 8. Eric stepped out first. A younger woman followed from the passenger side, wearing the bracelet. Then he opened the rear door and lifted a small boy from the car. The child wrapped both arms around his neck. Their movements were relaxed and familiar. Nothing about the moment looked secret. The woman carried groceries toward the entrance, while Eric followed with the boy resting against his shoulder. I stayed in my car until the apartment lights came on. My husband had another family. The loan was not saving a business. It was financing a life from which my daughter and I were already being removed. I drove home with my hands locked around the steering wheel. Our 12-year-old daughter, Sophie, was finishing homework at the kitchen table. Her backpack rested beside her chair, and one of Eric's coffee mugs stood near the sink. The normal details felt unbearable. Eric returned after midnight and behaved as though he had spent the evening working. His calmness frightened me more than anger would have. A guilty man might panic. Eric looked comfortable. I wanted to confront him immediately, but the unauthorized card stopped me. An affair could be exposed in one conversation. Financial fraud required proof. The following morning, I contacted an attorney named Rachel Pierce. She handled divorces involving hidden assets and identity theft. After hearing everything, she told me to freeze my credit, change every password, copy all financial records, and avoid warning Eric. Her next instruction was to check the property records on our house. That search changed the situation completely. A home equity line of credit had been opened 6 months earlier for $45,000. My name appeared on the application. The signature resembled mine. I had never signed it. Our house was now collateral for money I had not borrowed. Most of the down payment had come from my mother's inheritance. Losing the property would erase the only lasting thing she had left me. A full credit search uncovered another loan for $30,000. The company listed me as co-owner. I had never created a company. By the end of that day, the known debt was approaching $200,000. Only the largest loan was truly mine. Everything else had been built around that first signature. For several days, I gathered evidence while pretending life was normal. Bank statements were copied, tax records were downloaded, and contracts were photographed. An old laptop in the garage contained files Eric assumed nobody would examine. Regular payments had gone to a woman named Cassandra Miller for nearly 5 years. Rent, utilities, medical bills, childcare, and car expenses were all covered through accounts connected to Eric. The boy I saw appeared to be around 4. Cassandra had not entered his life recently. She had been there for half our marriage. The business account revealed where the loan had gone. A small amount purchased real tools, giving the company a surface of legitimacy. Far more money covered the apartment, Cadillac, jewelry, travel, furniture, and personal debts. The company existed mainly to move cash. Then I found the Florida house. An offer had already been accepted on a property outside Tampa. The documents showed a $70,000 down payment funded by my loan. Eric had chosen a school district, requested insurance quotes, and asked how quickly the sale could close. My daughter and I did not exist anywhere in that future. One message to the real estate agent explained the urgency. Eric wanted the purchase completed before business creditors began reviewing his accounts. That sentence exposed the entire plan. He knew the company would fail. He expected the payments to collapse. By the time lenders came looking, the remaining money would be attached to another property and another family. I had always described Eric as careless with money. The evidence showed the opposite. He was patient, organized, and deliberate. His planning simply served himself. A forensic accountant found another $35,000 scheduled for an international transfer. The money was about to move beyond my reach. The bank blocked the transaction and froze the company account. My credit profile was locked and the unauthorized card was closed. Eric noticed within hours. His calls began while I was at work. I replied that suspicious activity had triggered an automatic review. That explanation bought me enough time to send Sophie to a friend's house. When Eric entered our kitchen that evening, copies of the credit card statement, property records, and Florida purchase agreement were spread across the table. His expression changed before he could control it. The calm returned quickly, but the first reaction told me everything. He had never expected me to discover the plan. His explanation turned repeated choices into unfortunate circumstances. The affair had supposedly begun during a difficult period. Cassandra's pregnancy created obligations. He had somehow become trapped between two families. Nothing in the financial records looked accidental. My identity had created the company. My forged signature had secured more debt. Another woman's home had been furnished with stolen credit. A move to Florida was being organized while our savings disappeared. When I placed the property agreement in front of him, the performance weakened. His future no longer included me. The business proposal had also been false from the beginning. Several clients listed in the projections had never agreed to hire him. Warehouse photographs came from another contractor's website. Equipment estimates were copied from an auction listing. The professional folder that earned my trust was built from stolen images and invented numbers. There had never been a real opportunity. My credit was the opportunity. Once denial became impossible, responsibility shifted everywhere except toward him. The bank had reacted too aggressively. Cassandra had demanded security. Problems in our marriage had supposedly pushed him away. Then he used Sophie. A criminal investigation would embarrass her, damage her relationship with her father, and follow her for years. For several minutes, guilt almost worked again. Then I remembered the Florida school district. Eric had prepared a future in which Sophie remained behind. He was not protecting her. He was using her to protect himself. I asked him to leave. An officer was already waiting nearby on Rachel's advice. Under supervision, Eric packed a small bag and walked out. The husband I thought I knew disappeared in that hallway. What remained was a man calculating his next escape. The following morning, another construction supplier contacted me. Eric owed $18,000 for materials purchased under my personal guarantee. The signature was forged. More vendors followed. He had ordered materials on credit, sold some for cash, and left the bills attached to my identity. The total exposure climbed beyond $300,000. My body reacted before my mind could process the number. A panic attack began in the staff bathroom at work. My chest tightened, my hands went numb, and I became certain I was dying. When it passed, the danger remained. Our house could be lost. My credit score had collapsed. Legal fees were growing. The legitimate loan was still mine. Sophie asked whether we would have to move. I could not promise that we would stay. That question changed everything. The betrayal still hurt, but survival became more urgent. Investigators soon found a one-way ticket to Mexico inside an email account linked to the false company. The flight was scheduled 3 days after our confrontation. The passenger name was not Eric's. Police arrested him near an airport hotel with cash, 2 phones, and identification belonging to another person. He had never planned to fix the damage. He had prepared to leave it behind. Several assets were recovered. The Cadillac was seized. And used equipment was sold. The Florida purchase had not closed, so part of the deposit was returned. Unauthorized debts were challenged, but the original loan remained because my signature was real. After every adjustment, I still owed $67,000. Keeping our home became impossible. The mortgage was current, but the legal expenses and loan payment consumed too much income. Selling the house was the only way to prevent a worse collapse. Moving day arrived 4 months later. Sophie sat on the floor of her empty bedroom while sunlight exposed pale rectangles where her photographs had been. She had grown up inside those walls. We packed her childhood into cardboard boxes and carried it outside. That was the true cost of my signature. Not only the money, not only the damaged credit. It was watching my daughter leave the safest place she had ever known. We moved into a smaller rental house across town. I kept my full-time job and accepted weekend work at a veterinary clinic. The loan was refinanced over a longer period, and every unnecessary expense disappeared. Progress looked ordinary. Packed lunches. Canceled subscriptions. Tax refunds sent directly toward the balance. Another month without a missed payment. Eric accepted a plea agreement involving fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Letters began arriving from prison. The first ones mentioned regret. Later messages focused on his loneliness and the unfairness of his situation. Eventually, one letter asked whether I could qualify for another small loan to help with legal expenses. That request removed the last trace of doubt. Even from prison, Eric still saw my credit as something available to him. I never responded. The remaining balance took nearly 5 years to eliminate. Raises disappeared into payments. Vacations were postponed. A better car had to wait. Every sacrifice repaired a decision connected to a man no longer in my life. Still, each payment reduced his control. The day the balance reached zero, I visited the bank in person. The employee printed a statement showing no remaining debt. I held the paper for several seconds. Relief arrived quietly. 5 years of fear had ended in one ordinary office. Outside, I sat in my car and stared at the final balance. The loan had taken our house. It had delayed savings for Sophie's education. It had consumed weekends, sleep, and years of peace. Nothing could return those things. But my future no longer belonged to that signature. Sophie was 17 by then. We celebrated with pizza in our rental house. She asked whether I wanted to buy another home. Someday, I probably would. What changed was my understanding of security. A house could be lost. A marriage could be false. A perfect credit score could disappear within months. Real stability came from knowledge, boundaries, and the willingness to face uncomfortable facts early. I once believed trust meant asking fewer questions. Now I understand that honest people do not fear verification. A real business can survive an accountant's review. A legitimate contract can survive careful reading. A trustworthy partner does not create urgency to prevent questions. My mistake was not supporting my husband. It was allowing guilt to replace judgment. Today, no person controls an account carrying my name. Large financial decisions wait several days. Independent advice is mandatory. Any request for immediate trust receives more scrutiny, not less. Those rules may sound unromantic. Debt collectors are less romantic. Foreclosure notices are less romantic. Packing a child's bedroom because someone used your love against you is less romantic. For years, I replayed the day I signed the loan. I imagined closing the folder and walking out of the bank. That version of my life never happened. The only life available was the one after the mistake. Once I accepted that, I stopped living entirely inside regret. One signature created years of consequences. It did not define every year that followed. I lost my marriage, my house, and more money than I ever thought I could repay. What remained was more valuable than I understood at first. I kept my daughter. I recovered my financial independence. Most importantly, I learned the difference between love and pressure. The next time someone tells me a signature is only a formality, I will remember the Florida house. I will remember the diamond bracelet. I will remember Sophie sitting inside her empty bedroom. Then I will read every line, verify every promise, and protect the future carrying my name.